Hey folks, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I thought I would focus in on how mousesports was able to finally defeat Vitality and end the streak that has been such a historical one for Vitality, winning 37 best of 3 and best of 5s in a row, 7 titles in a row, and we're looking to make another grand finals for their 8th win in a row. But mousesports in the semifinals of this event were finally able to conquer Vitality after losing to them 7 times prior to this. They were on the 8th attempt able to get the victory over Vitality, and so I am going to just dig a little bit deeper onto this topic as there was some interest in it when I put out my storylines from Cologne video. So yeah, I'm going to kind of just break down this matchup, kind of the context behind it, and then look at the actual maps that were played in this series and kind of break down some of the key rounds that I feel like really tilted the odds in MOUZ's favor and allowed them to finally get one over on Vitality. I know it's a bit of a tough one for them because they ultimately didn't win the tournament after beating Vitality. They got stomped by Spirit in the grand finals in that best of 5, but they still walk away with the, I guess, victory of finally having beat Vitality and kind of got past that mental hurdle, perhaps, and hopefully that will fuel them going forward. I do want to apologize. I don't have my normal setup for this. My PC has been really tanking lately. I do have another PC on the way, actually, waiting on it, but until then, I have to kind of make do with what I've got, and so I'm doing what I can. Now, I don't want to get too in the nitty-gritty of the history of this matchup because this would make the video incredibly long, but all you need to know is that these teams had played against each other 7 times previous to this one, and Vitality won all of those, and that is by domination. I mean, they won the first 7 maps in a row, most of which were in pretty dominant fashion except for these 2 at Blast Open Lisbon, and yeah, won all 7 series, most of them best of 3s, but a couple were best of 5s, and in the series, the trends were this. Vitality won 17 maps, MOUZ won 4. So not only was all 7 series going Vitality's way, but they also dominated the map count. Then when you want to look at the maps, so DusT 2, Vitality won 4, MOUZ won 1. Inferno, Vitality won 5, MOUZ won 1. Mirage was the closest map in the history of this matchup, where it was a map that MOUZ tried to prioritize quite a lot, with mixed results. Vitality winning Mirage 3 times and MOUZ winning 2, but the most recent matches on Mirage went Vitality's way here at the Major and here at IEM Dallas. Then Vitality had won Nuke twice, MOUZ 0. Vitality had won Train 3 times, MOUZ 0. Now, throughout the history of the matchup, as far as pick ban goes, generally speaking, it was permabans. It was MOUZ permabanning Anubis and Vitality permabanning Ancient. So that is one of the big ones. But when it came to picks, it's funny because MOUZ tried to change things up throughout the history of this matchup to try to turn the tides of it. Initially, they tried to go for Inferno. That backfired. Meanwhile, Vitality were able to make great use of DusT 2 in their first series as a pick. They were able to win those 2 as you see here. But then after that, we see a pivot where MOUZ tried to pick Nuke the next time around, and that backfired completely. Then after that, MOUZ finally make the pivot to Mirage and actually picked Mirage the next 2 series. And win 1, lose 1. In that regard. Meanwhile, Vitality make a pivot away from DusT 2 and they start picking into Inferno, or at least prioritizing it in the sense of a best of 5, and they're able to, obviously use Inferno to great effect in the history of this matchup. Then, again, MOUZ really try to stick with Mirage for the most part as kind of a key pick for them throughout the history of this matchup, and again, that was the map they were the closest as far as head-to-head history goes against Vitality. Meanwhile, we did see Vitality eventually pivot back to DusT 2 in one situation, and then pivot right back to Inferno at the Blast Austin Major. And so they've really bounced around their pick. Now, one thing to note, though, is that they never picked Train, but they won it all 3 times they played it. But it always kind of came like as a decider map, or just kind of later on in a BO5. In this case, it was the last map of this best of 5 at Blast Open Lisbon. So a lot of bouncing back and forth of picks from Vitality. MOUZ also tried to change up their picks to try to change up the course of this matchup, but it didn't wind up mattering. Vitality won all 7 series, again, winning 17 of the 21 maps in the series, and in many cases dominating. I mean, the first 2 matches weren't even close. Blast Open a little bit closer, but still a 2-0 for Vitality. This best of 5, yes, I mean, MOUZ won a couple of maps, but in the reality, Vitality clocked them on the first map of the series, and then they won the last 2 matches of the series in dominant fashion. So yeah, MOUZ gets some maps, but for the overall story of the series, still pretty one-sided in favor of Vitality because these games weren't even close at the end of the series. Then Blast Rivals, a little better. MOUZ win the opening map, but then again, these 2 maps weren't even close. Pretty dominant for Vitality. Dallas, I mean, a 3-0 best of 5, with DusT 2 being the only map that was relatively close. And then, yes, MOUZ upset them on Inferno. It's the only time they actually beat Vitality in Inferno. And they did so in a very one-sided fashion. But then again, the other 2 maps weren't even close. So definitely a lot against MOUZ in this matchup. And of course, a lot of history for Vitality built off the back of their wins over mousesports. But let's talk about how this one was different. So some quick things to note about this series just before we get into talking about the maps itself is the fact that we see a pivot, obviously, in the bans with Anubis being removed from the map pool. We see a handshake to overpass, and so MOUZ elects to remove DusT 2, and that was pretty smart because they had played against each other 5 times on DusT 2, and Vitality won 4 of those games, MOUZ only winning 1. We see Vitality picking Train this time around, and this was the first time that Vitality had selected Train in a matchup against mousesports, but it is worth noting that Vitality do have a very good record on Train. They have a very good track record there, so just kind of pivoting, trying to change things up. They had already played against them a bunch of times on DusT 2, a bunch of times on Inferno. Mirage had gone back and forth. That's actually the closest map in the series. The 5 games were played on Mirage from these 2 teams, and Vitality won 3 of the matches. MOUZ won 2. Now, Vitality could have potentially prioritized Nuke. They had beaten mousesports on Nuke the both times that they had played them on Nuke, so I mean maybe that could have been an option, I suppose, but they had beaten MOUZ 3 times on Train prior to this one. So while it was never like their first priority, it had always gotten played at some point, maybe in a best of 5 or something like that, and they were able to get the victory. So either way, I don't think that Vitality picking Train was a mistake. I think maybe some people might point to that as being kind of odd, but I actually don't think that was really the issue here. And then MOUZ picking Mirage, I think that was, pretty intelligent. Again, that was the closest map record for them against Vitality was Mirage, again, winning 2 of the 5 games there. So pretty, straightforward. There's nothing too crazy here other than MOUZ getting to now remove DusT 2 with Anubis out of the pool, and them, again, prioritizing Mirage and just being able to be ready for Vitality on Train, even though that was kind of a surprising pick, but not crazy by any stretch of the imagination. Now, before we actually get into the tactics that took place, I mean, you obviously have to talk about individual performance in this series. I mean, there's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Vitality came into this one very flat. Their stars, ZywOo and Flames, did not perform very well in this series, as we will certainly get into as we dig deeper into this. Really, only Rops had a good performance overall. And finally, MOUZ had all of their players come alive. I mean, Spinks was a little bit more quiet, but played well enough. But we finally saw Xerxin and Torzi, who are such high-impact players, Xerxin being an aggressive rifler, Torzi obviously being a more aggressive opper as far as his style. Jibby also, he's had some struggles this year, so to see him come out and perform well in this series is obviously big. And then Brolin in the IGL slot having a pretty good rating from an IGL perspective. So you got a MOUZ firing on all cylinders against a Vitality team who had some players definitely underperforming. So that is something that you just have to talk about as far as just form goes going into this matchup. Then as we take a deeper look at Mirage, again, worth noting just the opening kills that MOUZ were able to achieve. Xerxin 6-0 in the opening duels. Torzi 4-1 in his opening duel. Jimmy obviously doesn't take very many opening duels, but the one he did, he won. Obviously, Brolin 50-50, not too bad for an IGL, obviously. And then Spinks had a little bit of a tougher time, if we're honest, but he was more than covered by the rest of his teammates. Obviously, Xerxin and Torzi frag out in this match, and we'll certainly get into why that was the case. And again, meanwhile, just flat on the other side. I mean, ZywOo, normally very good at opening, was actually struggling at openings in this game, and then went 8-19 in KD, so that is just well below what you expect. Apex, Obviously, one of the weaker fraggers on the team overall, I guess, but he's been fragging pretty well in a lot of their playoff series they played, particularly against mousesports. So to see him drop off this far was pretty damning. Flames also didn't play that well. Again, it was really only Rops who somewhat played up to standard in this series, but again, also worth noting the opening kills. And really, I'm not going to focus too much on the first half of this when we actually start watching the game, because I thought Vitality did more than enough on the CT side to put themselves in position to win this thing. I mean, they were up 8-4. They had a 5-0 start. Yes, MOUZ fit in a couple of rounds here and there, but for the most part, Vitality put themselves in a good position. It was MOUZ dominating on the CT side that allowed them to flip Mirage back into their favor. And as we'll see as we look at the rounds, I feel like a lot of it just came down to them really dictating the pace at middle, whether it was their counter utility to stuff Vitality, whether it was them actually getting kills with aggression in middle. And then from that, as a foundation, they were able to take care of other kills they needed across the map. But really making mid their focal point and denying it so often to Vitality and just dominating that portion of the map is really what was the kicker in this one. And so, again, we'll start with the second half. No real need to focus on the first half. And obviously, MOUZ are able to get off to a roaring start by winning the pistol. And you can see in this pistol that we're seeing Vitality looking to go for a mid-crunch through underpass and top middle. You got Brolin spotting from window. You got Spinks playing aggressively on catwalk. And then you got Zersh and Jimmy playing inside the B site. And then Torzy is just kind of jiggling around on A. And we see Apex modeling window. That allows them to start making some progress up. They're going to smoke off connector. And they want to be able to surge on to the catwalk with window being covered by the Molotov and the smoke covering their backside at connector. But Torzy was able to get a kill through that smoke on the dome of ZWoo. So opening kill goes the way of MOUZ. And as we see Vitality try to continue to stream into B, they're in a spot where there's already 2 B defenders on the site. They've been there the entire time. Spinks has been hiding in ladder room, so he's able to jump in behind them if needed. But he wasn't, because Zersh and Jimmy take care of business on the site, and then Torzy and Brolin just cover the connector, and that's pretty much all she wrote. I mean, they got completely shut out, and the round was over in pretty much a blink of an eye. I can't know if there was just like some hard counter-stratting going on here about, you know, maybe knowing some of Vitality's pistol rounds and how they wanted to handle it, but it seemed like a pretty damn good hard counter to me and absolutely shut them out. Obviously, the next round is a wash because Vitality is only with the Deagle basically on Mezzy. Everyone else is rocking Glocks, and so that one's over with. And so all of a sudden, you're at a 6-8 game with Vitality on their first full buy. Now, Vitality actually double smoke window here. So they are blocking off Torzy having access to vision from window. And everyone's basically playing the spots that they've been playing since Spinks joined the team. Spinks playing the B rotator, Jimmy the B anchor, you know, Torzy being the roaming op, Zershon being the A connector or A rotator, and then Brolin being the A anchor. And this is one of Vitality's default mid openings. Sometimes they play like a double A mid focus default, where like Mezzy and Rops will double up A and they'll crunch mid with the other 3 players. But then sometimes they will just play like a more classic 1-3-1, and they will vary how many numbers come underpass and how many numbers will go top middle. In this case, Apex is going underpass, and ZWoo and Flames are playing top middle. And so they're going to try to get some mid control here, but the counter utility, I want you to kind of watch that. Obviously, Brolin is stuffing A ramp with the incendiary and then the smoke, so Rop's not able to make any progress there. Jimmy, great incendiary inside the B apartments, but also just look at all this utility that's coming out in middle right now. So we see, you know, an immediate flash from Zershon to kind of slow down Flames and ZWoo at top middle. Then we see a flash incendiary combo, once again holding these guys at bay at the corner and then blocking them from being able to cross to the top box. At this point, Torzy falls off because there's not really much more he can do from his position. We see that there was a Molotov thrown inside connector, but now we're seeing Zershon smoke here, which basically is denying anyone from being able to come underpass and really spot and connect connector appropriately. And it also makes it a little bit tougher for these guys to like get aggressive into connector or get aggressive towards windows. So again, they're just keeping them at bay. And then on top of all that, after the smoke gets deployed by Zershon, you're also seeing an incendiary thrown by Spinks to stop anyone from coming up underpass. So again, just amazing counter utility by mousesports here, really denying any type of map control whatsoever for Vitality. Now Vitality will finally force their way into middle with a couple of flashes, but then as Apex tries to get through underpass after this incendiary starts to fade, all of a sudden he's got another one. And so he still can't be a part of the mid control whatsoever. It is just Flames and Ziwu, and they really can't do much other than get past top middle. Then, again, Apex is thinking about trying to come out of underpass after already sitting through 2 incendiaries, and there's an HE grenade. And so Apex still really just getting held at bay at middle, and oh wait, there's another HE grenade, and then a smoke on the bottom of connector. And so we are, really progressing through this round, and Vitality have not really been able to establish a whole lot of mid control other than just getting to the top mid boxes, which really isn't that much. Robs has already been pulled off of A at this point. Now we see Apex smoking the other side of connector, and they are going to re-smoke window. But then we have a counter nade come in from Spinks. He's going to be playing aggressively off the catwalk. Xerxen and Brolin are basically doubling up, and they're giving up A side and just doubling up on the connector. And as Apex tries to get a flash through the smoke here, he gets rinsed by Xerxen inside con, and now Brolin's able to push through smoke. And so now you got 2 guys in connector and Spinks and Jimmy on cat. I mean, they have a 4-man crossfire on these remaining 3 guys trying to come up mid-cat, and they just get run through the blender. I mean, yeah, they get some trades in this exchange, but they get rinsed. And yeah, Mezzi's just left alone, bombed down at middle, 45 seconds left on the clock in a 1 versus 2. And at that point, MOUZ can just kind of play smart, play together, use utility to slow Mezzi down from being able to advance by swinging cat or by trying to come through murder hole. And they just wait it out, and eventually they are able to finish the job. And so, again, just really great chaining of counter utility from mousesports at middle was one of the big things you saw this round, but also just the crossfiring that they got in the late round was fantastic inside connector and off the catwalk. And so that's a brilliant combo. It puts Vitality back onto another save. Yeah, they have a couple of deagles and a scout, but it really doesn't amount to much. And so now all of a sudden you got a tie game. And so another important gun round coming up for Vitality. What are they going to do? They smoke middle, but they're actually going to try to go for something more heavy-handed towards A to try to change things up. And they're actually picking a pretty good time to do it because we actually see 3 guys going towards B, and so it's just Xerxen and Brolin on the A side of the map, and they're all spilling into B site. So there is a timing to be had here, but counter incendiary here stops anyone from advancing on ramp early. Then Brolin smokes off Palace so that he and Xerxen can double focus on A ramp. Xerxen is going to nade it. Spinks does get aggressive off catwalk for a little bit of intel. So he does counter smoke any type of advancement to come up connector. And so they really, Xerxen and Brolin don't have to worry about connector. They've smoked off Palace. They don't have to worry about that yet either. And so they're both able to double fixate essentially on A ramp. And so this is just some good team play as Brolin's going to get aggressive and he's going to find Mezzi. And now Vitality, because they have no other presence anywhere else in the map, decide to go ahead and pull the trigger because they've been spotted. And so they're going to start throwing their basic utility for an execute. Brolin peels back with a counter HE grenade, peels back into the firebox area, or behind them rather. Xerxen pivots to sandwich. Apex and company jump out looking to try to execute this site, but Brolin from firebox able to grab a kill immediately. This is going to pull a lot of attention his direction. And then, so that means Xerxen at sandwich basically goes undetected. And so he's able to get himself a frag there as well. And so now you only got a couple of guys left. They're both pinned basically by Tetris. And while they are able to kill Brolin, they get flushed out by Xerxen's incendiary. He's starting to get some rotations going. And while he does get taken out, at this point it's already a 3v2 for MOUZ. They have all the info that they could want. They're in good positions now. And that HE grenade, beautiful, beautiful piece of utility there, kind of understanding where the plant's probably going to be, so they're able to take him out, and that means Flames is alone in 1v3, and he can't really do much. And so, again, this is just really good team play from MOUZ, and it's just really good counter utility being thrown at A. And I think one of the cool things about this is when Brolin gets this kill and runs away, they never saw Xerxen. So Xerxen's able to tuck into sandwich undetected and allows him to play kind of a bait and switch with Brolin. And that puts them in prime position right there. You know, now all of a sudden they have a 5-on-2, and while a couple of trades go back against them, they're still really well set up to close at this point. Now, Vitality do win a low buy here, but as we get to the next round, when we're back into a full buy situation, we are going to watch that once again. We are seeing some mid-control trying to be established by Vitality. Smoke window, dumping some utility over towards Con. Seeing some counter utility come from Spinks and company, smoking connector, incendiaring back mid. Obviously, they're keeping that smoke up on A ramp as they have been. And in the midst of all this, Brolin able to find a frag on Apex, just looking for a timing out Palace. It was kind of a weird one because it wasn't with any type of flash or anything else, really. It was just Apex, I think, trying to do a gut check play, just trying to make something happen, trying to catch someone off guard. But unfortunately, he doesn't. Brolin is just ready for that. So that's that. Now he hears that grenade at ramp, so he knows there's a player there. He tries to fade back and counter nade. And actually, they nade stack Xerxin and Brolin onto Rops, so they get him down to very low health. And while he is able to catch Brolin in awkward space, they have Rops down to low HP, and they do have a 4-on-4. Xerxin is getting pinched right now, so things do get pretty dangerous. But Spink's able to spot from window, but he gets caught. Really thought he might be able to catch them off guard here. Neither one were really looking, but then he starts shooting at Mezzy. They both turn around, and they catch him. And so this is actually kind of a bad spot now for MOUZ because they're a man down. Xerxin's getting pinched from ramp and connector. Torzy is going to try to get in position to help him from catwalk with his op. And Jimmy's still kind of just in a B anchor spot, nowhere near rotating to really be a part of this play. But as you can see, Z1 Company have to kind of slow down at connector a bit to molly Torzy off the angle. But we see a good incendiary toss by Torzy as he gets out of there inside connector. And so this forces Mezzy and Ziwu to take some chip damage here. You can see Mezzy getting ticked. Xerxin hears that, turns around, gets the kill, and able to avoid getting pinched by Rops by such a sliver of time. It's very close. But he gets away, he gets a kill, and he does damage to Ziwu. And so now, even though it is a disadvantage for MOUZ, it's only by one player, and Ziwu and Rops are pretty much at the grave. I mean, anything's going to kill them at this point. And Flames is still pretty far out with the bomb from getting to A site. And so these guys are just stuck here with limited HP. Jimmy finally makes his rotation, catches one at jungle. At the same time, Torzy gets an op kill onto Ziwu at connector. And now they have a 2v1, and they just play together. And so that is now 10-9. But with the plant, Vitality can full buy yet again for the most part, though Apex only has a Galil, no op, but that's really not a problem for them. They have plenty of utility. So as we get into this round, we see, once again, the mid control being established. Counter nade there from Xerxin to kick things off. Brolin gets pushed back a little bit. Torzy now has repositioned his op to ticket this time around. Xerxin and Brolin are playing double connector. And then Jimmy anchoring B, Spinks playing his normal B rotation position. They are going for their double A default variation in this particular one, and Rops actually playing towards B apartment. So this was kind of more of a spawn-based thing more than anything. Counter utility, once again, at middle here from Brolin and Xerxin, stuffing underpass and nading top middle. And again, they're just dictating the pace at middle. That's really the biggest thing. And then they're able to actually get even like a boost to peak underpass. They're counter-nading, they're counter-smoking connector. And so they already have, Torzy anchoring with an op at A couple of guys over here boosted in a window, and then Spinks is able to swing off a cat. Now, that flash comes in, alerts Torzy to, A being a threat, so he gets away. And this is where they kind of start resetting a little bit here, because smokes and other utility start coming in. They actually Molotov stairs and smoke connector area shallow, but they were not expecting Torzy here, I don't think. And so they didn't do anything to block off Torzy's sightline with the AWP from Ticket. And so the first guy that comes up A ramp is a freebie for Torzy. And so instant man advantage. They do push him back, and they are starting to get a little bit of space on site, but it's only 3 of them because Rops is going for a long con flank through B site. And meanwhile, you already got 4 MOUZ members in position. And they actually decide to fall back off of this because when Rob's getting to B site and detects that no one is here, they decide to cancel this A execute because they've gotten found out. They know the rotations are coming. They've lost a player. So they decide to bow out. Apex is trying to keep them interested as best he can. Does get caught there by Spinks. Rops gets a deep market position. They swing the bomb around these last 2 players, but they just lost too much across the round. And while Rops tries to make a play happen on this close market position, I mean, he's facing 3 guys at the same time, gets caught. Now it is a 5-on-2 retake on B. Bomb doesn't even get down. They crush him. And this round, Vitality don't really have any money. So then we go into what will be the final round of the game. Last chance saloon for Vitality. And they once again are going for mid control. This time double underpass, and then Flames solo top middle. But now MOUZ change it up. They have been throwing counter utility at middle quite a lot, whether it be nading underpass, incendiaring underpass, counter smoking con, throwing HEs and incendiaries top middle, throwing flashes, doing everything that they can to slow Vitality's mid control down. But this time they send it. They send two guys middle with Brolin supporting from window. And while Spinks does get caught, that is true, and that is a tough loss. It kind of makes them a little bit cautious here. And then Zershin catches the kill at underpass to immediately equalize. Gets the smoke, and Rops is just not expecting this. Zershin pushes through his own smoke and takes the kill at underpass. Just a brilliant individual play from Zershin. Again, was doing so well in his opening exchanges and playing that aggressive style. And so it was supreme fragging for mousesports was the big one. Great counter play, and middle was another big one. Obviously, it was overall great player performance and opening kills was big, but yeah, they just rallied a fantastic CT side, which we have broken down in pretty good detail. But now let's get to Train. Another big performance from mousesports, winning 13-8, overall out-fragging their opponents. Flames only gets one kill. I mean, we had to talk about that already. I mean, that's already a huge problem for Vitality, that your entry is only get one kill. He's 0-6 in opening duels. So that's a huge problem for them. Again, Ziwu doesn't play that well, one of their stars. Apex steps up a little bit better this time around, and Rop still continues to play decent, but again, they're just getting outperformed. Firing on all cylinders is the other side. Spinks actually pops off on Train after playing a weaker Mirage, and even though he didn't do well in the opening kills, it didn't matter. He still went 20-10 throughout the game and did a great job. Zershin 6-0 in opening duels. Brolin 4-1 in opening duels. Torzy equal. But again, no one's able to make openings happen for the Vitality side consistently. So again, this is just the player performance aspect of this whole situation. Wanted to highlight that before we get into the rounds. So overall scoreline-wise, Vitality getting 5 rounds on the T side isn't the end of the world, and they actually win the first 2 rounds. But this is the first real big fumble that cost Vitality dearly in this map, and this is losing an anti-eco, and we'll watch it play out here. As you can see, Vitality just looking to stream it outer. They do the double nade stack to stop any aggression towards Pop. They also put up the Molotov to stop anyone from getting aggressive and trying to swing around this direction. And so this really just pushes Brawl into a passive position, though, near the Pop box with his own smoke for cover. And they pretty much just trust Spinks to passively hold inner solo, and they redirect everyone to outer, and you're going to gamble in a round like this, obviously, when you don't have that much firepower to use, and so they're gambling on outer. Now, they do smoke off what I call icon, and, Ivy connector. A lot of casters are calling it icon. Some people call it camera. Whatever. I don't care either way. And they throw a deep smoke Z, but I just don't think that really matters. I mean, Spinks walks right by it. It doesn't really do anything. And they try to pop flash and just go for a big outer push, but they just don't catch Brolin, who is able to sideswipe Flames in the side of the head with the 5-7. Ziwu able to kill Zershin, and they are trying to kill Brolin. They know that he's here. He's already killed Flames. They're trying to do it, but as they're doing that, this is allowing, Torzy and Brolin to fight together, with Torzy being unaffected. And Brolin actually just comes up and gets a second kill, to his credit. I mean, so getting 2 kills, huge value. But as it stands, now we have a 3 versus 3. They're committed to outer, but everyone's here. Spinks catches his headshot on the Rops, pushing past that Z-smoke, catches a second kill on to Ziwu. 2 beautiful 1-deeks there, and then that is a done deal. So a huge anti-eco loss for Vitality, which leads to a mixed buy from Vitality in the next round. They decide to force up the Galil and the 2 AKs to try to make something happen here. Zershin fades away, catches a kill on the Flames on his way out. Smoke sandwich from Vitality, but then we got counter utility at T main. Eventually, they just have to start pressing through. They're running out of time as they try to go Olaf. They do catch Zershin, so they're able to start getting some outer control. But now we've already seen MOUZ reset, rotate, and they're ready to go. Nothing in their way. A lot of damage has already been done throughout the course of the round. Apex and Rops are very low on HP. And so they are able to just kind of firing squad, do the deal, and get the job done, which allows them to get this next round as well, which now all of a sudden puts them, at a tie game. Or up 3-2, rather. And while Vitality are able to get a few more rounds this half, they are unable to keep it going as MOUZ are able to win out the last 4 rounds of the half. But then this is where things get tough yet again for Vitality. Another really big moment in this one. And so they are able to win pistol, but then we have this one. Oh, dear me. Look at this. This is probably one of the hardest anti-eco losses I've seen in a minute. Because as this round starts, they go for a triple Ivy play. And triple Ivy used to be pretty popular in CSGO. In this version of Train, I don't find it as useful. With the update to Train, which wasn't being played in this tournament, maybe this will change a little bit, but still not great. They are going to see MOUZ try to pressure here, and they get run through the blender. ZywOo obviously had Muzzy and Apex for support, but he didn't even need it, and so they get a triple kill. They have a 5 versus 2, and all that is left against them is Spinks insertion with Deagles. Welp, Apex decides to push through Ivy for intel. Not really sure why he's doing this. It's not necessary. I think at this point, when you've gotten 3 kills and you're in a 5 versus 2, you can just kind of play together. They still have control of the bomb. You don't. This push out for info isn't really necessary. And he just gets, boom, 1 deke from Xerxin. I mean, that is just kind of nasty. You almost can't blame Apex for that. I mean, that's just a ridiculous shot from Xerxin, to be fair. But I don't know that pushing out Ivy for info was really all that important. Maybe Apex was just trying to make sure that this wasn't like some kind of like crazy fake or something, or probably thinking there might be a follow-up guy that he's going to try to just go and get. Either way, it doesn't pan out, however you want to spin it. And so this is not the end of the world, though, for Vitality. The biggest issue, though, is that Mezzy and ZywOo both have really low health. And so it's mostly on Flames and Rops, or just being able to catch them on an angle or something like that. And they have no idea where these 2 guys could be coming from now, because Apex pushed Ivy, got caught, so they don't know where these other guys are. So they got Rops just playing his normal anchor position in inner, just playing back, playing passive, waiting to see if anybody tries to come down lower or upper side. And you got your 2 outer guys, and you got Flames, who's kind of bouncing back and forth between covering outer and Ivy. Now, he obviously hears that, so he knows that there's at least 1 person Ivy at this point. Decides to just give up on it, though, and play sandwich, and then Mezzy eventually will turn his attention to Ivy when they feel like there could be a press. And so you see Mezzy make that swing of attention. Flames and ZywOo playing their, positions here at outer yard. Rop still covering inner. And so Xerxin starts to make his way up. Obviously, Mezzy sees that and hears that. So they know that one's Ivy now for sure. And so they're all focused on it at this point. All 3 guys looking towards Xerxin coming out Ivy. ZywOo, though, playing Olaf. And then Flames is like having to switch back and forth basically by playing at sandwich. This is just a tough spot for him to be in. I get why he's here, because he doesn't want to leave ZywOo stranded. And he knows that they're both low health. And so he's kind of in a weird place. But it's just not the most ideal, because he's having to bounce back and forth, essentially. So Xerxin smokes this, which basically it kind of stops him from being able to make progress into outer comfortably. And now he's going to isolate kind of a fight with Rops because of it. So this actually wasn't the best, in all honesty. But then Spinks catches you at Olaf. So now Flames is again having to worry about getting pushed through the smoke, and Spinks now at T main. Rops still hasn't really been able to get in a position to find Xerxin. And now Xerxin comes through the smoke, takes out Flames with a M4 he was able to collect, and then Mezzy gets caught, and then that's all she wrote. I mean, Rops tries, gets it into a 1v1, but Spinks able to close, and so that is damning, because not only do they lose this round, but then this round, can't really buy anything, so can't do anything about this round. Next round, can't buy anything at all, so this round cost them 3, all off of losing a 2v5 against 2 Deagles. So now we're at a point where MOUZ have a 10-6 lead, so they have a ton of cushion. And now you have a CT round where they don't have that much utility, don't have an op either, so they are way behind as far as what they can put to use in this round. And so we are going to see kind of utility being exchanged towards outer, Mezzy hiding in the corner here at Ivy, Rops kind of just playing one of his many positions he will play as an inner anchor. And then you see that they're trying to get, aggressive towards Pop. ZywOo kind of gets his attention pulled by some utility here. Smoke goes at sandwich, very common. Counter smoke at T main. Apex actually rotates to inner. Flames still playing the up close Pop position. They spot Torzy, though, with the op at Ivy. And so they're probably thinking that, there should at least be one guy with Torzi, or maybe the other guys are at Team Main. They're probably not expecting a crazy inner push at this point. Their attention is still definitely here. Meanwhile, 4 gather up inner. Hell, at this point, Apex even comes back to outer because of Torzi being spotted with the op at Ivy. So he has done his job on keeping people's attention. So now Rops has to fall back because he has no more support. And then they just catch a great timing here. Just go for the intercept piece, catch Rops. I mean, brilliant entry shot from Xertion. They obviously molly off the rotation Z. They're nading this as well, so they're really cutting off rotation points from the CT side at this point. Just layering the smokes into Z now as well. Bomb's going to get planted. Obviously, Xertion's here in flames, throwing some fire down inside Z, so they know that he's there. And then Ziwu gets clipped by a beautiful nade from Brolin, so he loses 41 HP. Spinks finishes him off. Now they have to save. And while they're able to get a couple of rounds going here, it comes down to this final round. And in this final round, we see kind of similar utility exchanges breaking out all across the map early. Nothing too crazy going on. Jimmy and Brolin fighting to get some presence at Ivy. Spinks just playing solo inner halls. They're getting pushed back by utility at Team Main. So all pretty standard. But then they gather up inside inner halls. Jimmy catches a kill on Apex Ivy. And so now all of a sudden, they're once again thinking, could this be an outer split? Because we see a guy Ivy, he's gotten a kill. We know that our utility at Team Main is gone now, so they can start looking to split from Team Main and Ivy. And there's also a chance that they come pop. Ziwu obviously is fixated on that, while Flames is fixated on Team Main. Well, Jimmy gets another kill at Ivy. And so now it's just like, what can Vitality really do at this point? They are hard stuck. They don't know where this bomb's coming from. Rops obviously knows it's possible they could still be coming in her, so he's still there, but he has to retreat to a more passive position and ultimately decides to gamble that they're going to go outer because Jimmy's done so much on his own. And right as soon as they do that, what do you know? They push in her just as Rops peels off. They've lost so much control. Spinks catches Flames right away in Connector again. He had a terrible game, only 1 kill. And that is pretty much ball game. And so I tried to give you a little bit of everything. I tried to give you the historical context of this matchup, how big of a win this really is for MOUZ, and I tried to help explain a little bit of how MOUZ are able to do it through individual performance, opening kills, great CT side on Mirage with great counter utility and mid aggression or presence at the very least, as well as also just some good jobs anchoring the A site. And then Train came down to 2 pretty big anti-eco losses for Vitality, so 2 huge value grabs for MOUZ, one of which led to 2 additional rounds due to the economy. And yeah, they played some really good just Ivy pressure to keep people's attention outer into inner hit timings that were very effective. And so that is pretty much the whole story. Hope you enjoyed it. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe, like, comment, and I'll catch you on the next one.